An interview with Gene Roddenberry from 1973's Star Trek Animated Fan Club newsletter. The Star Trek animated series came out in 1973 and 1974. This newsletter came out before the series came out and gave a preview of the series to come. Particularly, it had the interview with Gene Roddenberry. It does not say who the interviewer is. Looking at the newsletter, which I found at a yard sale some years ago, um, it does look like it might have been put out by Roddenberry to hype up the new show. So he may have been interviewing himself. And so let's go ahead and get started with reading this. Gene Roddenberry, creator, producer, director of Star Trek, answers the questions on why was an animated version of Star Trek developed? When was the concept for Star Trek animated thought of? When it all began and the reason for the decision? In the years since Star Trek went off the air, I received several offers to do an animated show. I had turned them down because it was obvious that the people who were inquiring at the time were interested in doing a kiddie version of the show full of space cadets who would say, "Gee whiz, Captain Kirk." And I didn't want to degrade Star Trek that way. I felt that Star Trek was a potentially valuable property, and that sort of treatment would just ruin it. I told them I would not do an animated show until I had creative control and could guarantee that Star Trek would be done as it should be done. The same characters, the same types of writers, and so on. Finally, this offer did come through from Filmation and Paramount, and that's how we started on this one. What year was this decision made? It was about 6 months ago that NBC said they definitely wanted Star Trek on Saturday morning, and they suggested Filmation as the studio who could do it properly. We came to an agreement at that time and began to put the thing into work. How did the principal stars of Star Trek feel about going into animation? Having decided to do the animation show, there were certain things we had to have. I wanted the voices of the original cast. I wanted original Star Trek writers. And I was very fortunate in being able to talk Dorothy Fontana, our former Star Trek story editor, into being our associate producer. So we essentially assembled the same group of people. We also found, to our surprise and delight, that at the Filmation Studios, a large number of the staff and artists were Star Trek fans. We discovered we were going to get better than average treatment from them. They wanted Star Trek to come back as it was. As far as the stars of Star Trek were concerned, I think their reaction was the same as any fan's reaction. At first, they didn't like the idea because when you say Saturday morning, you think in terms of what's been done with animation in this time period. And their attitude to me was, "You're just going to ruin Star Trek." So I had to say to them that they were going to do it in the fashion that I had in mind. When they made a visit to Filmation Studios and saw the drawings of themselves and the care with which we were approaching the show, then of course their fears were resolved. What age bracket or age group do you feel this will attract? We hope to attract all age groups. Obviously, Saturday morning is the time that children tune in, but I think that if interesting programs are produced for that time period, we'll get a lot of adults too. I don't think that the difference between what children watch and adults watch is that far apart, or necessarily that far apart. I think the best example of this is that the evening Star Trek, which was produced for adults, attracted an enormous kids audience. Our fan mail on the evening Star Trek came from kids, but also from college professors. So I think that says something very interesting. What do you think will be the difference between Star Trek animated and the original Star Trek? Animation is a different form. There are a lot of things we had in the evening show that we can't do in animation. Let me cite some examples. There is no way we can do the kind of animation Disney used to, where you had fine drawings of facial features, etc. animation such as used in Snow White and Bambi, etc. So what we'll lose by it is that an actor in an evening show says a line, and you know by his acting talent and the way his features work that he's lying. In animation, you can't get that kind of subtlety. So we know we will lose some of the subtlety of real acting performances. The most we can do is have a few steps, head movements, and that sort of thing. On the other hand, there are things you can gain in animation that will help balance that out. If you want a Mr. Spock 50 feet tall, as we have in one of our stories, it's easy to draw him 50 feet tall as it is 6 feet tall. If we want to go to a planet where there is an intelligent life form that is derived from plants, we can do that. Well, you can't find any intelligent plants in the Actors Guild when you make an evening show. If we want an exotic spaceship 50 miles across, it's as easy to draw that as it is to draw one the size of the Enterprise. So as a result, you gain some things and you lose some other things. Our hope is that by having the original writers and some of the original staff involved, they will keep it on as high a level as is possible in animation. Do you have the same principal characters in the Star Trek animated show as the original Star Trek series? Hardly anyone in the industry would believe this because it never happened before. Every principal character in the show agreed to come back and do his own voice. In order to do that, they had to be convinced that it would have a quality level. Did animation give you the opportunity to have any new characters? Yes, that's been sort of the fun part of it. Watch for Star Trek Animated and see our two new characters. When you do live television, you can't talk in terms of three-legged or three-armed creatures and cat women. The costs of applying makeup and special appliances is just phenomenal in an evening show. Just Mr. Spock's ears was a major thing that had to be done every day. In animation, however, obviously, if you want a two-headed man, a three-legged man, or a catwoman, you can draw it as easily as you can draw a human being. So I think this is one of the pluses of animation. The fans will have a greater variety of alien life all the way through the show, on the starship and in the places we go. How many episodes of the animated Star Trek will be done? The way animated shows are done, you do them in blocks of 16, and then you rerun them several times. If it is a success, we'll finish this block of 16, and possibly 6 months from now, we'll do another block of 16, and then hopefully we will do another block. The economy of animation is based on immediate reruns. A fan might criticize us by saying, why don't you just do 30 or 40 of them so we don't have to see the same ones over and over again? And I would say, in answer to the fan, we'd love to. Unfortunately, we're as much prisoners of the economics of the industry as anyone else. Do you consider going into animation a real challenge? Yes, it has been a challenge. And it's a great risk for NBC and Filmation and ourselves because we are risking an awful lot of an awful lot of money, time, effort on a belief that if we present more intelligent programming on Saturday morning, it will work. I think if it does work, Star Trek will have been a revolutionary show and it will change the entire picture of Saturday morning broadcasting. I think if this works, children are going to get better programming in other areas too. If it doesn't work, there will be a lot of I told you so's, and children's programming will go back to being the dull, unimaginative, insulting stuff that it has been for so many years. Do you have anything special that you would like the fan club members to know about the new Star Trek animated show? I would like to say, first of all, that they are likely to see certain things lost in animation, but I would like them to balance that out with the fact that there is some excitement and some things gained. I would like them to understand that we waited to do Star Trek in animation until we got creative control so we could do it properly. I would like them to understand that one of the reasons we allowed the show to go into animation is because that we think that improves the chances of getting the original Star Trek back on the air. If the animated show is a big hit, and we hope it will be, if we guessed right about the level of children's intelligence and so on, it could be a great deal to help us get the original show on the air. After the interview, there's this article discussing the characters of the new show. All your favorite members of the Star Trek cast are back. You'll be able to recognize all your friends from the original cast of the live action version of Star Trek. What's more, you'll begin to relate to the animated versions of your favorites because each character speaks with the voice of the actor who created him or her. That's right. Every member of the original cast agreed to his or her old role for the animation. Here's the cast as you remember them. Captain James T. Kirk, an Academy graduate with the rank of Starship Captain. Mr. Spock, science officer of the USS Enterprise and ship's first officer with the rank of Commander. Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy, senior ship's surgeon, head of the medical department, holding the rank of Lieutenant Commander. Lieutenant Sulu, ship's helmsman who is a mixed Oriental ancestry, but contemporary American in manner and speech. Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott, senior engineering officer of the Enterprise. Lieutenant Uhura, communications officer, highly efficient in all ship's communication systems, as well as a popular crew member during off-duty recreation periods. Nurse Christine Chappell, Dr. McCoy's head nurse and surgical assistant. She is a senior lieutenant and holds several university degrees in research space medicine. Plus, two new interesting characters. Lieutenant Moress, the alternate communications officer who mans the station whenever Lieutenant Uhura is off duty. She is a felinoid from the planet Kate in the Lynx constellation and displays all the moves and cunning her ancestry passed on to her. First appearance, Mud's Passion. Lieutenant Eric's, the new navigator of the Enterprise and tripodal, with 3 arms and 3 legs to help him man the helm navigation console by himself if necessary. First appearance, one of our planets is missing. So that's the start of the articles in this newsletter. It's kind of a neat little product. It does have some unfortunate things like referring to Lieutenant Sulu having Oriental ancestry. That should be Asian. But it also is kind of neat to see, like, they referred to Moress as a felinoid rather than a Kaitian as they came to be called. And they don't actually tell you what species Eric says, just that he's a tripodal. I hope folks enjoyed that. And please like and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of this. Do let me know. I have a bit of a collection of old fanzines, particularly Star Trek fanzines. So if there are any particular kinds of articles or fan fiction you would like to see on the channel, let me know. Let me know what you thought about this interview too. That's it for today.